I said, I think this is the number. It sounds like an Aussie number. And I said, I think this is the person's name. It was Rhonda Byrne made the secret. Glenda was her sister. And she was doing the heavy lifting, I guess. So anyway, Gina, and they said something about a movie, but I said, oh, everything I'm telling you could be wrong. Well, she phoned me back in an hour, and she said, no, everything you were telling me is right. She said, there's a film crew they're doing this film from Australia, and they really wanted you in it, but they haven't been able to get a hold of you. And I thought, well, they couldn't have been trying too hard. They phoned my phone. They found the number. And but she said they're going back to Australia next week. They've been trying for a month to reach you, and they're shooting in Aspen all weekend. And Gina says, isn't that strange? Bob's doing a seminar in Aspen this weekend. I hadn't been to Aspen for 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
And so I just walked next door. I was working in a hotel. I just walked next door and walked into a little room. It wasn't much bigger than this. And they had cameras, and of course there was no air, and
you're sweaty, the lights are hot.
Oh, it was terrible. I mean, you wouldn't have believed the way that was set up. And they had 2 cameras, one that was rolling and one fixed. And that's the story. So I answered a zillion questions for them, and they got a roll going, and I just started to talk. And they loved what I was saying because it was along what they were looking for. And so I opened my computer and I put a page of PowerPoints up that would trigger my mind on different things. So they had me in there for a couple hours. And I never heard anything from them then. I think that was in the summer until the next spring or something.
Really?
And I got a CD by FedEx. Now I get a lot of CDs sent to me, and I didn't, they were back then. And
this is what, the 90s or 2000?
Well, I don't know, it was the year before it came out. It came out in 2006 or something.
Okay, so 2005.
So it was, And I put it on my coffee table, and I said to my wife, we got to watch this thing. I didn't even know how to start
the CD player.
And so anyway, she put it on, and I looked, and I thought, oh my God, this is gonna rock. I think I'd probably studied their subject more than anybody.
Right.
And then they had me do a section. If you go into the CD, into the menu, there's a special Bob Proctor in there, where they had me do about 30 or 45 minutes. I did it in my office on a green screen. I just started talking. I didn't stop. And they never edited it.
Wow.
And they put that, so that's in there.
That's the bonus.
Yeah. And I think that's online for, I don't know, 2 or 3 million viewers on it.
Wow.
Since that was in 2006. I'd been in the business since 1968.
Wow.
I started in 1968 with Nightingale Conan.
What's the high school?
I went to high school for 2 months, and they kicked me out.
Why'd they kick you out?
Well, I was useless. I was going nowhere, doing nothing. I mean, I was a useless human being, really. I had the word goal. I would think of a hockey game or a soccer game. It was not something a person would work toward. I had been in and out of the Navy and in and out of factories and working in bars. I mean, I was going nowhere. And I was 26 when I woke up. But prior to that, nothing was happening. I think I'm very effective at what I do because I always figured if this worked for me, it would work for anybody. I was such a loser, and my world changed so dramatically that I've never ceased to be fascinated with what happened to me, and I want it to happen to other people, and it can.
Why do you think you were such a loser? Because I feel like we were brothers then.
I've thought about that many times.
Yeah.
I was born during the Depression. I've been around a long time. I'll be 85 next week.
Wow.
So I was born during the Depression, and the Second World War broke out. I was just 5, 6 years old. My dad went overseas, so I never really knew my dad. I had a brother and a sister older and brother younger, so I was in the middle. And I had my grandmother sort of like buddied up with my brother, and my mother with my sister, and I felt like I was sort of lost.
And your dad was gone.
Yeah, well, there was no father. I mean, he come home after the war and then he was gone again. So I didn't have any real direction as a kid. And I was very thin, I was always underweight. I guess I had very low self-esteem. I knew nothing about who I was. Nobody ever taught me anything about that. See, in those days, I mean, things were tough for everybody. You know, during the war and during the Depression, your parents, I guess my mother was happy just to be able to feed us and put a roof over our head.
Survive, yeah.
Yeah. And now, mind you, she was really a phenomenal woman because she did everything on her own and she made it happen. So my brother and sister and I talk about it. We always say, God bless Mother, because she kept going, you know.
Yeah.
And so we look back and I think we had good gene there.
Wow. What was the biggest lesson your mom taught you?
The biggest lesson she taught me was to be generous. She was a very generous person. I give a lot of money away. I give a lot. I'm considered a very generous person. And I think I learned it from her. I remember we were kids and there was a family on the street over from ours. I lived in the Beaches area in Toronto. And in the winter it was very cold and we heated the house with coal. And they didn't have any coal, so their house was cold.
Right.
And I told my mother about it, and I remember she sent me to the corner with a $20 bill
It's a lot of money
to
then.
get 2 tens. It was a hell of a lot of money.
Right.
And she gave me $10 to take to the other family to buy a ton of coal.
Wow.
She didn't even know them. And that stuck in my head. Well, I'm still talking about it 65 years, 75 years later, yeah.
She was very generous, even when she had
Yeah, and
very
I think that was something that she instilled in me. Probably in all my brother and sister as well, you know.
Did she end up kind of making it or
Well,
earning
no,
more
well,
money?
she did. I mean, she kept things going.
Yeah.
She didn't really understand the rules for success or winning or anything. Hers was probably more survival.
Yeah, of course.
And she did that. So she did a great job with what she had.
Yeah. What does the power of generosity do for the other person and do for you, the giver?
Well, you know, Jane Wilhite puts it very well. She runs Psi seminars in California. She says, you willingly give and graciously receive. The giver enjoys more than the receiver.
Always, right?
Yeah.
When you're in service to other people,
Yeah.
when you're in service with charity or people that maybe have less than you in the moment, it always feels amazing.
Well, like our company builds schools in Africa.
Yeah.
And we build a lot of them.
Yeah,
we built Cynthia
schools
Kersey.
too.
Do you know
Yeah.
Cynthia Kersey? You should interview her. She's a
Okay.
fascinating woman. She builds the schools over there, her foundation. And I met her and I started to support what she does. In fact, my son's over there right now with his wife.
Wow.
And every summer, Cynthia takes a group over with her. And we built